Where would you like to start? We could talk about Kyrie opting in to 36.5 million. I don't know about you
Yes, let's
guys, but
talk
I
about
actually
that.
thought there was a chance that that wasn't going to happen. Am
There
I
was a
crazy
chance,
for
but
that? Did
now
you guys?
I didn't know that.
this is very clear for all when people were. I don't necessarily say critical of Kyrie, but this is when I want to make sure people are very clear. Kyrie is one of the most special athletes this country has ever seen. Not just basketball player. Like what he's able to do physically, his footwork, his skill set. Athlete. Yes.
Athlete?
Yes. Yes.
A
yes.
feat?
Yeah,
A fleet?
Athlete.
Is that French?
Athlete. Yeah.
All right.
So
He's athletic.
when I say this, as I mean that, so many people are supportive of Kyrie
super
during all of the Be Different and everyone's very supportive. But the time is going to come where it is not about your skill set. And when there was hey, I'm willing to be signed and trade to these places, and a lot of these places didn't have space, or a lot of these places weren't willing to do it. Kyrie could have potentially been a free agent, and there are teams with cap space, but he might not have wanted to be there. Point of this is you can be different, but once the teams are oh, it's time to hand out the money, they want to know that people are going to fall in line. And I think that the last week or so for Kyrie is evident, not necessarily to Kyrie. I think Kyrie knows this, but to the rest of the world. It's the difference between him getting a $200 million extension and the only thing out there for him was a $6 million contract from the Lakers. That was the only thing. That's why he opted in, because Dave's hey, bro, if you want that 200 million, you got to go prove to it.
Can you help me make sense of this? Kyrie said, normal people keep the world going, but those who dare to be different lead us into tomorrow. I've made my decision to opt in. See you in the fall. Being different would not be to opt in, correct? I think people are, if you're trying to be different, you probably would have taken the
I
step.
assume in his mind, him being different is him not taking the quote unquote easy way out
Okay.
by going to the Lakers or right? So for me, this should have been a non-subject. Whether your name is Kyrie, KD, James Harden, Kyrie played 30 games last year, and he was hurt the year before that. And then all of a sudden you just assume that people are going to give you 200 million and commit to you when they feel like the commitment to consistency is not there, right? They're not saying you're not a good player. They're not saying you don't love basketball. The consistency and the commitment to consistency is not there, as it seems to people on the outside and obviously to the rest of the league. So that is the non-issue. It's not an issue. Prove yourself. It's not like you're taking a bad deal. Kyrie, you've been injured a lot. You're betting on yourself for 1 year. I think this might be one of his better years in his career. To me, I think so. If he can stay healthy, because of the motivation and the pressure on him now to prove himself. He has to reprove that he can be committed to try to play 82 games in a year. Right? And in the playoffs. But nobody's no, I'm not giving you 200 million for you to just say, something's going on. I don't want to play today. We can't, we need you out there to win. And that's where I think this shouldn't have been an issue. It's just an issue because it's Kyrie.
No, and one of the things that we talked about is when we were saying things to Kyrie or about the situation, it's bro, you're going to cost yourself $200 million. What's going on? The Nets were trying to extend him, and I know that there was some contract if he waited till the end of the season than this. And look, I stand by the vaccine. There was a lot more players that were unvaccinated. We saw it with Matisse Thybulle. There were some players on a lot of different teams that since they haven't been talked about, but there's a lot of different guys on different teams that weren't vaccinated. So it wasn't just him. And so I'm not trying to force anything on him. And he was told by the NBA that they wouldn't, but the city put a mandate on him. So he's looking at it as I was ready to play. I was this, I was that, this something. And I support that. But also there was other things. It wasn't just that. You don't not get your $200 million because you just couldn't play the first portion. don't say it's not just that. And anybody that's saying it was just the vaccine is why he didn't get a long-term extension, or the Nets were like, yo, we'll give you a multi-year extension, but like we need to have like games played, we need to have this, we need to have that. And a lot of that is the Nets trying to take some control back, in my opinion. I don't know specifically. I didn't talk to Sean Marks or Steve or anybody about it. It's just like teams want control, right? They want to make sure like we are paying you not to be different. We are not paying you to be an activist. Not saying that all of those things you should be. You should be more than just a basketball player, but we are paying you to play basketball.
To play basketball.
That is what we are paying on. And if you aren't playing basketball, then we don't want to pay you. And that goes for any job, right? If you are a baker and you are paid to bake cakes and you are choosing not to do that because you're like, I really like accounting. And it's like, well, we're paying you to bake cakes. You can do all the accounting on the side as long as you show up on your 9 to 5 to bake the cakes. And I think that's, I know it's a simple analogy, but the teams were going to get their money back. The teams were going to gain some control. And so that's the part where, like, hopefully Kyrie has the year that everyone knows he can. He plays in 75 games and the Nets win a championship and he gets a max deal. Great for him.
So you're sitting here, are the both of you convinced that Kyrie Irving will play for the Brooklyn Nets next year?
Yeah. To start the season? Yes. To start the
no.
season? You don't think that he's going to be on the team to start?
I think there's going to be a lot of I think there's going to be a lot of movement this summer. I think there's not. No offense to Zach LaVine or some of the other guys, there are right now no superstar names out there, and I think from what I am reading, the Nets made a posture to go, you know what, we're okay. Kyrie, you want to go somewhere else? For this $37 million on your last year, we can get some, because I think people forget the Brooklyn Nets were 8th. They made the playoffs 2 years in a row before Kyrie and KD came. So the Nets believe they can inject people into their culture and redo that. So
back.
If somebody doesn't want to be there, whether that's KD or Kyrie, they are trying to get that culture back. And they also want people to want to play in Brooklyn, right? Because you look at some of these teams that are really successful, are like i.e. Golden State, people are wanting to go there and play there for less money. Or you look at Dallas, people want to go play in Dallas. People want to go play in Phoenix. People want to go play in the Clippers because they believe in the coach, they believe in the players, and they believe they have an opportunity. But if you have a bad culture, then nobody's going to want to play. And then you're not going to get those older free agents that you need to really win championships.
That's facts. Well said. Well said. Like, you got to. What up, Hendrix? You gotta those opportunities, man, like, are very rare. I saw a thing that said Looney this year played more games this single season than Kyrie has in his 3 seasons with the Nets. Now I know that I know that is
he played.
That's a little skewed because he played in final, but that just shows you when everyone's saying the best ability is availability. It's like we can't give $200 million and $50 million a year to someone that we don't believe. And again, it's all about the cap space. It doesn't matter if it's 50 million, 20 million, 20 years ago. It's like we can't give max dollars to someone if we don't believe that we're going to get max effort from them. And it doesn't mean just on the court. It means as leaders, as people that are showing up, as people that are all in. And I'm not saying Kyrie's not all in. Representers of the organization. Yeah. And right?
Why do you think, Miami keeps UD around? Because he represents the organization, right? It's like, does he play? Hell to the no, he don't play. But he represents the organization. People go, you know what? I like this type of hierarchy. I like that everyone is held accountable. And all I got to do is my job to be successful. Sometimes when there's all these other things, and here's what's not skewed, Richard. That's over 3 years, right? And Kyrie's not the youngest player. So it's not over 1 year. It's not like, Kevon Looney played 104 and Kyrie played, 102. It's like 3 years, right? Out of one. That availability is needed because, and I was telling somebody why certain guys stay 6 men. It's the consistency of playing basketball. How do you coach a team when somebody can't play or isn't available half the month? How do you scout? Like, how do you prepare who starts, who comes off. The guy that has to go in for you is the guy that's screwed because he could be having a great month and all of a sudden, you know what, I'm ready to play now, and he got to go sit on the bench.
Statements made, and I know that there was probably some lost context in them when there was like, oh, we don't need a coach, or when the season was over, it's like, oh, well, me and Josiah and Sean and KD really have to focus on the direction of this franchise. Those are some things. Look, say what you want about Bron, but that motherfucker shows up every single night. He'll go do a movie, he'll go do a music video, he'll go start a company, and that motherfucker's gonna show up and give you 30 every single day and do all this stuff. That doesn't mean that mean that he's flawless or this, but like if you want the Bron type of control over a franchise that some of these players have, and Bron's not the first one, and he won't be the last one. There's a lot of players like him. Kobe had similar control over the Lakers of like, hey, this is the direction I feel this is best, blah, blah, blah. Like these things happen with great players in franchises. Tim Duncan, right? Where they have input on who's around and stuff like that. Again, it varies per player. But like, if you want that type of control of a franchise, bro, you got to be front and center. That means that you are putting, you are putting everything first, right, on the basketball court. And that's not just on the court. It is the leader. It's the locker room. It's the media. You're putting all of that first, and then you get that. Talent alone will not get you control of a franchise, at least not a successful one. At least not a successful one. If you want an input, then you have to be contributing on the business end. You have to be contributing to the community in a positive way. All of these things. And now we're not saying that Kyrie isn't all of those things. We're just saying if you want that control, he needs to do more. The control and the money all come together. You have to give them more. That's why they wanted more games. That's why they wanted more things stipulated in his contract. Because if we're going to give you this, we need more than what we've been getting. That's the way business works. This ain't basketball. This is business.